Today, we're presenting a report on the real-world examples from Brazil and Ecuador that illustrate how blended finance and targeted TA can support portfolio shifts, enhance governance, and deepen client engagement to foster long-term sustainability in financial institutions. The presentation will be followed with a fireside chat that will delve into the critical role of technical assistance in not only reducing perceived risks, but also embedding sustainability into the core operations of financial institutions. You can expect to gain actionable insights into leveraging blended finance and TA for zero carbon transition and climate resilience. This event reflects CIF's commitment to fostering collaboration, sharing best practices, and scaling solutions that align with ambitious climate goals. We look forward to an engaging discussion that will guide the next phase of transformative investments for a sustainable future. Let me now welcome Mr. Daniel Morris, Clean Energy Lead at CIF, to deliver the opening remarks. Danny, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Zisa. Good day, everyone, whatever part of the day it is for you. Glad you could join us. As Zisa said, I am Danny Morris. I am the Clean Energy Lead for the Climate Investment Funds. For those who may not be very familiar with CIF, I just want to establish kind of where we are and how we came to be doing this work. Climate investment funds were established back in 2008 and were built to really be a place where multilateral development banks could come together and push the frontiers of climate finance for using their own knowledge, reflecting the priorities of the countries that are involved, and trying to find innovative, pioneering ways to deploy finance in the name of responding to the climate crisis. By partnering with governments, MDBs, private investors, CIF is able to use its concessional finance to accelerate the transition to sustainable activities, building sustainable markets, and deploying resources where they're most needed. Over the course of our 16 years of operation, we have been able to deploy resources for 400 projects in more than 80 nations through 5 to 7 different investment programs. That work has resulted in a co-financing ratio of 1 to 8.7. So for every dollar we deploy, we're able to mobilize 8.7 from multilateral development banks, the private sector, national governments, and other players. And while that's a pretty good track record, CIF exists to sort of be on the frontier of climate work and climate finance. And so in doing that, we have come up with a number of different ways to try and ensure that our activities are really pushing the boundaries as much as possible. We started approaching this particular line of work in 2019 with the establishment of the Technical Assistance Facility. It was built to mobilize technical assistance that could create an enabling environment for clean energy investments. It could provide and leverage funds for early stage activities that would then incentivize long-term public and private investments in developing regions around the world. While TAF's portfolio is spread out across 57 countries, and we've contributed more than 36 million in grants to the work, a lot of that has happened in the Latin America and Caribbean region. In fact, over a quarter of the portfolio of projects have been built in the LAC region, and almost 20% of that pipeline has been programmed through the Inter-American Development Bank Group, which is a huge proportion, and IDB is actually our second biggest MDB partner in the TAF. One of TAF's main objectives and why it has been attractive to the IDB is that it aims to achieve and increase adoption of innovative business models and financing instruments. It's the expectation of the portfolio is that from the 36 million up to $1.2 billion could be mobilized through the adoption of new business models and instruments through the learning that TAF has facilitated. I think TAF really exists to be a learning hub and a knowledge platform that tries to identify lessons that can be identified by stakeholders and executed across multiple markets. By integrating technical assistance into blended finance transactions, then financial institutions can try to achieve significant portfolio shifts to climate smart investments. This is the type of work that everyone has said they want to see happen, and the TA really allows for the type of experiment to ensure that that can work. We do need to do more as a system, an MDB system of which SIF are a part, to utilize the scarce resources that we have to try and maximize our collective impact. We at SIF has been working on this for a number of years, and in reality, the technical assistance facility is a big part of that. Building on the experience that we have, and working with our 6 AAA rated MDB partners, we've been able to develop a portfolio of investments in clean energy and clean technology using the country-led programmatic approach. It is a key part, is that the country-led aspect of our work is critical and really necessary to ensure the success of all the work that we're doing. So we are pleased with the results that are coming out of the technical assistance facility. We think the work is really important, and we are looking forward to highlighting some of it today. With that, let me wrap up my introductory remarks and hand it back to Zisa. Zisa, please.
Thank you so much, Danny, for the opening remarks and that overview of SIF and the technical assistance facility. We will now invite Daniel Majagon, the CEO of BASE, who will be presenting the report. Please, Daniel, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Cisa. Can you enable, please, that I can share my screen?
You should be able to share. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Can you confirm that you are you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
We can see it now. Maybe you can make it like full screen mode, the presentation.
Yeah. Second, I'm fighting here with the hidden buttons with the Zoom that doesn't allow me to see, but you know how to do it. Got it. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Good. So first of all, thank you very much for the SIF for the invitation to collaborate in this amazing report, and as well to present in this launching of the report. Thank you, Danny. Cisa and Paul, has been a privilege from the BASE team to work with you. So is to give you an overview about the report. The objective was basically to analyze the structuring of outcome-based concessional blended finance supported by technical assistance to enable the sustainable transformation of financial institutions. And for that, we did the analysis of 2 financial institutions, Sicredi and Produbanco in Ecuador, that were actually supported by IDB Invest and the Canadian Climate Fund for the American C2F. The methodology to do this analysis basically were first analyzing the impact and the changes at the operational level of these financial institutions, reflecting what changed internally in the financial institutions at the portfolio level and the allocation of the funding, the resources. Then the second point was about analyzing the organizational level, the governance, and how these aspects change internally in each of the financial institutions structure and the strategies, how they were adapted according to this blended finance. And the third point was as well analyzing the sectoral level, basically analyzing what happened with the financial institutions, alliances, associations, and impact even with the segments of the market that they were serving. I'm going to start with Sicredi. In the case of Sicredi, the objective, it was allocated $110 million which included $10 million from C2F. That was basically the share that was used as an incentive. And this funding was basically to contribute to the expansion of solar photovoltaic systems, mainly in the area of cooperatives, where CICREDI has been working very hard and very strong. The outcomes that were set for these incentives were basically based on the PV solar photovoltaic financial growth, the lending in these cooperatives. And as a second outcome that was established was basically internal improvements in trainings and processes for gender diversity and inclusion in their human resources area. The scope of this technical assistance basically first was to support the CICREDI Bank in identifying the assets already in the portfolio, the green investments, and preparing guidelines for sustainability business strategy, tools that help the financial institution to standardize process internally, and as well creating a green bond framework. By the other side as well, the technical assistance was used to strengthen the GDI processes internally and provide guidance as well for the financial institution. The concessionality here was basically based on a traditional debt structure with the semi-annual repayments and the outcome-based incentives, which the incentive was focused in reduced interest rates and 2 years grace periods based on these outcomes previously mentioned. In terms of Product Banco, the objective was basically $50 million in a sustainable bond with 10 million from blended finance, again from C2F. It was the objective as well to focus on post-pandemic recovery for SMEs, green financing, and as well internal strength of the team and alignment with the Net Zero Banking Alliance, as they are members of this group. The outcomes that were established for measuring these indicators was basically set emission reduction targets and decarbonization plans, and the bank becoming a TCFD supporting and issuing their climate related financial disclosure reports, basically the climate risk exposure of the financial institution. And as well, they establish as a target reaching a green lending portfolio of $75 million. The scope of the technical assistance that was provided with the Product Banco through the IDB was help them to set up a baseline for financial emissions for the portfolio, as well to define a roadmap for net zero emissions by 2050, and establish in this roadmap reduction targets by sectors according to what the Science and the Paris Agreement establish, and as well establish a decarbonization strategy according or aligned with the Net Zero Bank Alliance principles or guidelines. By the other side as well, the technical assistance was aimed to support the bank in developing their TCFD process and gap analysis and basically provide recommendations for the climate risk exposure. The sustainable bonds had a particularity with a partial bullet payment structure with an outcome-based concessionality that was applied at maturity in the form of a reduced equivalent interest rate. So these are the two financial institutions that were analyzed in terms of the key lessons, the case studies. And the key lessons from this report, that you will see all the details in there. First, link concessional finance to outcomes. I think this in case and show that in case financial institution alignment with global standards amplifies impact and unlocks sustainable finance. I think that one of the key aspects of this blended finance and outcome base is how you push internally, how you motivate your teams in into achieve these goals. The second aspect is asset outcomes at maturity. This is very important because it allows as well the financial institutions to have some flexibility to do adjustments, internal adjustments to be able to achieve the targets and objectives that they have established in the long term, and supports actually the ambition that they have established at the beginning. The use of conditional discounts, this basically helps to mobilize internal teams and incentivize them in order to meet the target. So it helps the financial institutions to create to be creative in order to be able to achieve and motivate the whole team aligned to these objectives that they have established. The alignment of the technical assistance with the outcomes actually ensures that the financial institutions are guided and supported in this process to strengthen internal procedures or systems that allows them to reach those targets that were established. So it's very important, and I think what's evident in the report, the relevance of the technical assistance and not the blended finance as an isolated aspect. And the last point in terms of the learnings is the set of ambition yet attainable goals. I think it was very important to learn in these two cases how these were ambitious goals, indeed, but they were achievable, and that keep the momentum and keep the teams and the banks involved in all this. I think that the report itself, it comes in a very timely moment when we are discussing about the importance of mobilizing private finance, and it as well shows how outcome-based incentives help to build trust in the market in a moment where we have a crisis in terms of trust, and this trust actually help to leverage and attract larger amount of financial sources. So I'm going to stop here my presentation. I hope that I give a good overview of the report, and I invite you to check the details and download it.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for giving the details on the blended finance and technical assistance transactions presented in the report. We have been able to take from your presentation how the operational, organizational, and sectoral level have been transformed in both Sicredi and Produbanco. And I think also how this moves us closer in support for the climate ambitions. So thank you so much for your participation, Daniel. We will now move to the fireside chat to hear insights from practitioners. I am pleased to hand the floor to the head of climate change at the IDB Invest, who will be moderating this session. Eileen, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Cisa and Daniel, for presenting the study. This is a very interesting study for us because I think it puts in a report what we're seeing across Latin America, working with financial institutions. So it gives us the idea of this work together, right? Of the TA with the blended finance or concessional resources that there is so much need for. So right now we are going to have the opportunity to deep dive to basically what you heard from Daniel talking about Sicredi and Produbanco. We actually have Joan Pedro from Sicredi and Marcelo from Produbanco, and then we also will have Dani from the Climate Investment Funds and Malini from IDB Invest to tell you a little bit more about what it is that we were able to achieve with this marriage between TA and concessional finance. So with that, let me start with Joan Pedro from Sicredi. I don't know if you're connected. I don't see you. Oh, there you are. There you are. Sorry, I just had to move the screen to find you. So tell us a little bit about, well, Banco Sicredi and how you're using this concessional finance to scale your sustainability initiatives. If you can give us an example on how you're achieving impact.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. Well, regarding concessional finance and how we are able to raise funds from it and also to deploy the funds. Sicredi is a cooperative financial system operating in Brazil. We operate through more than 100 credit unions here. And in that sense, we have been, this operation that you mentioned with IDB and C2F was our first concessional funding operation. And since then, we were able to raise more than $1.5 billion in funds from, I think, 8 or 9 MDB and DFIs all across the globe. And we say that it's been a journey where we learn something more about a specific aspect regarding the sustainable finance market in each operation. This operation in question that we're talking about here, it had a very structured concessional finance mechanism with the TA and with the incentives properly placed. So it was a great starting point for us. But even in further operations where we didn't have this incentives that well aligned, in the due diligence processes or in the reporting requirements of the MDBs, we also were able to evolve as a system, and I mean through our databases, through our processes, through our climate policies, and all of that. It's been a trajectory for us where we were able to do private operations, to do technical assistances. I work at the sustainable finance team. We had a technical assistant specifically directed towards us. We had a technical assistance directed towards our credit operations team, directed towards our climate risk team. So it's something that in each operation that we do, regardless if it is directed to green or social aspects, the MDBs, the DFIs, they are able to see what we are not accomplishing regarding best practices of financial institutions around the globe, and they are able to structure a plan so we can evolve. So it's been a great journey so far, and I believe that regarding a specific project, since we operate with more than 100 credit unions and we operate with individuals, SMEs, and rural producers, it is hard for me to pinpoint a specific project. However, I can say that through these funding operations that we do with MDBs and DFIs, we have allocated those funds to more than 150,000 credit operations to our members. We were able to be, which we are now, the top financier in Brazil for distributed solar energy. And in 2019, when we started these operations, we were just starting this product, and we were able to create new credit lines, such as one directed to energy efficiency, another directed to electric vehicles. So it's these are a couple of examples of something that we were able to do through these financing operations that we did.
Thank you, John. I think that one of the things that I take from your intervention is that basically it pays to get ready, because basically you did all the hard work, the initial hard work, and that opened up the opportunity for all these other funds that followed, thanks to the work that you did initially. And also it's a very interesting example because in your case, you're working specifically with cooperatives and you're having this ground level impact that is so important. So let me pass on to Marcelo, to Produbanco. The blended finance and TA was able to reshape the Produbanco strategies for sustainability. Can you tell us a little bit more about the specific milestones and outcomes and how you did this work within Produbanco? Marcelo?
For sure, thank you. And thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity. Good morning, everyone. Well, in the case of Produbanco, the technical assistance and this project we have, it was a lot about the timing. You know, when we got this technical assistance from the IDB Invest, we were just signing our commitment with the Net Zero Banking Alliance, and we were part of the funding signatories of the Net Zero Banking Alliance. And at that time, when we become signatories, most of the banks that became part of this alliance, we have a lot of clear idea of what to expect about this. We know what was the commitment, but we don't know the specific steps we have or things we have to work on. In the case of Produbanco, we have our former CEO Ricardo Cuesta that used to say a phrase that is actually tattooed in our skin. He always said that without planet, there's no banks and there's no companies. So that's why we, even though we don't have any specific idea of our commitment or the things we have to do regarding the Net Zero Banking Alliance, we became funding signatories. And the technical assistant was, like, as I mentioned, a perfect timing, because we got to work with BASE, actually with Daniel Magallon team and the BASE team. And the first thing that we started working on is related to research. So what other banks specifically, for example, banks in Europe are working or are doing regardless the net zero and decarbonization targets. So that was the first part of the project. After that, we realized that as we are Produbanco, that it's a universal bank in Ecuador, and we are in a developing country. So the lack of information was one of our biggest issues regarding specifically our setting our targets, our decarbonization targets. So with the BASE team, we got to construct actually one methodology to establish our decarbonization targets, that it was like a mixture between physical targets and absolute targets and monetary targets. So we got to construct, as I mentioned, this methodology that I'm actually really proud of this. And hopefully this methodology could be used by other banks, especially banks that are starting with this commitment, starting thinking about decarbonization of their portfolio, and probably they don't have all the information they need to go ahead, and probably they are afraid of. And the other thing is that when we got to construct this methodology, at the beginning, I always mentioned that as a banker, the first part of the whole project is kind of uncomfortable for most of the bankers, because you're working in something you're not technical on, and you don't have all the information that is, for example, setting targets based on science. So the first one, you need the company of a consultant, in our case, for example, BASE and the IDB Invest, so we can move ahead and go into the second part of the project that is more comfortable. It's actually the best part of the project, is how to go ahead and accomplish those targets. So you can now think as a banker and what you can do for your companies, for your clients, and for the people to actually make this change that will improve our lives and actually will help us make this commitment with our portfolio.
Thank you, Marcelo. I think it's interesting, this idea that you said, and I translate into, we have to be ready to be uncomfortable, because this is going to be a process that will show our things that we don't know. And sometimes bankers are not people that are used to not knowing everything because they have a lot of data, and this is a new area. So we have to be ready to be uncomfortable. In the case of Produbanco, of course, you had a very strong leadership at the time. that push you to jump to the pool and basically start being uncomfortable. And the TA and the work jointly with the blended finance align incentives to reach the goals that you were looking for. Before I move on to Danny and Malini, let me ask you, both of you, one more question. It's like, in both institutions, maybe first, Joao, you can tell me what are the challenges that you face and how you're addressing the challenge. And Marcelo, if you wanna share with us, what would be the takeaway for other financial institutions? And then we pass on to Danny and Malini. So Joao and then Marcelo.
Well, there were many challenges in this whole process. I think one thing is that the other departments here in the institution that are not responsible for the funding operations, if we were uncomfortable and we were the ones that were in this project, the other departments were even more uncomfortable because they were demanded things that they were not used to, were demanded to change a few of their processes. And so it was something that, and for us, it was really important that the board of directors was fully committed to this project. So without that, it would be really hard to mobilize the whole institution. It was also important that the sustainability team here at Sicredi, they were really happy when we started doing this funding operations, because they began to have external enforcement for the things that they were trying to change here in the organization, and they really weren't capable of changing by themselves. And the other challenges is regarding data, since I talked that we have thousands and thousands of eligible projects, and we are not able to measure the impact of each one of them individually in the location going to the field. So we need to rely on data, and it's not something that it's ready. We don't have all the indicators ready. We don't have the impact measures ready. So we have to hire external consultants. We have to change the way we collect data at the commercial branches. So, well, it changes the whole organization, but as you said, it pays off to be ready. So in the future, it will certainly pay off all the hard work that we're having right now.
Thank you, John. Marcelo? What would you say to the other financial institutions that are starting this process?
Yeah, well, Helen, you mentioned it, prepared to be uncomfortable in a good way. As Joa said, you're going to be facing lack of information. You need to start working with other people in your own company, in your own bank. You need to get to them move forward with this commitment. And this will be like, it's like the first part of the whole idea, but actually the most important and the most gratificant for everybody. The second part, and really related to the first one, is like you need to make this strategy, the decarbonization part, a strategy, part of your business strategy. I would recommend that include if you can this in your strategical planning, but include specifically the business unit into the project. This will be like the biggest I can tell you. The third thing is like start researching, because when I got to work in this project, there were not a lot of information regarding decarbonization targets in the portfolio of any bank. Probably a couple banks in Europe, but you don't have a lot of information. Now in these days, most of the banks, or a lot of the banks, especially the big ones, have an decarbonization strategy. And because of transparency, they have a lot of information published in their websites. And also in UNEPIFY, you can find some information. Actually, with IDB Invest, you can also have a lot of information. This report, this part of the information you can be reading just to have a better understanding of this. So you're going to have a lot of really good information that is going to help you with this. And the last recommendation will be regarding if you are part of an alliance like the Net Zero or for example, Principles for Responsible Banking, or if you are working with some DFI, it doesn't matter. Like, my recommendation will be start working with something. Probably you are going to start working, for example, with a small part of your portfolio, with a specific activity, for example, with vehicle loans, or for example, your consumer loans. It doesn't matter. My recommendation will be start working with something, probably talk with somebody that have some ideas or can give you some recommendation about this target. Start like thinking about how I can get to obtain for example, the GHG emissions of this type of portfolio. That the idea is like you need to start with something to construct the strategy and how to sell this idea in your own organization. So that would be it.
No, thank you, Marcelo. I think, John, Marcelo, you just gave us a lot of information, ground information on what does it mean to implement this type of projects of combining blended finance with TA. And I think we have quite a lot of wealth of knowledge here, in addition to what is in the report. But let me pass on now to Dani. First of all, thank you, the Climate Investment Funds, for all the technical assistance that you provide IDB Invest and the IDB Group in general, and many other of the MDBs working to try to promote climate investment and impact in the different regions of the world. And maybe based on the fact that you are seeing many other examples, what are you seeing as one of the lasting examples of the climate investment funds in this space of financial institutions? And maybe you can tell me what are the trends and how do you see moving forward of the role of the climate investment funds to continue this type of work?
Great, thanks, Celine. I think these are two really good examples of what we have hoped to achieve through the technical assistance facility and what TA can do, right? And it really reminds me, if you'll indulge me, of a metaphor that I've used for this kind of thing before, which is that technical assistance helps plow the soil. Concessional finance is the seed that gets planted and you get the green shoots, and then eventually with a little bit of crops, then traditional development finance can come in and grow your entire field, right? And I think that Marcelo and Joao's examples really highlight that, and they very much speak to the theory of change that we have behind the technical assistance facility, right? So the idea is that with TAF, with this technical assistance, upstream activities can be funded, whatever they are. Maybe they're energy resource mapping, maybe it's policy development, capacity building. It's that very uncomfortable phase. It's support for that, right? That perhaps private institutions or even public institutions wouldn't take on their own. But this TA can really come in and provide a cushion for that. And then you get outcomes of those discrete activities, right? And those can lead to enhanced policy frameworks, different business models, things to pilot. Once those get on the ground, then you learn by doing, and it can lead to further adoption of those, and eventually can get to sort of transformational impacts, which is what we in CIF are really looking for, right? And we have a whole group in our institution focused on what does transformational change mean, what are important aspects of it. It really is very critical, and part of transformational change involves integrated approaches, which we're talking about now. It's country-led processes, it's prioritization of large-scale and opportunities for cross-sectoral learning and cross-sectoral funding, things like that. But none of that happens without this sort of key work at the beginning. So you asked about some impacts that have had lasting effect. There are two that come to mind. One that is an example in Latin America that we're very pleased with, and one is an example of some technical assistance facility projects that are starting to bear fruit a bit. And now I will caution on the TAF front, it's been around for since 2019. We really only started deploying resources in 2020, 2021 during COVID, actually, right? So there's still some time to see the outcomes. But maybe I'll start with the Latin American example really quick. A number of years ago, CIF provided some technical assistance and some concessional loans bundled with IDB Invest funds to support 125 million in financing for the Calama wind farm in Chile, right, which was supported by ENGIE. And the development of that wind farm was tied to early retirement of coal plants. So ENGIE, Energía Chile, piloted a groundbreaking approach that would link the coal plant closures to the development of the wind farm. And the idea was we would establish a methodology to help monetize the emissions avoided through the early retirement of the coal plants. So that led to the development of what was, could be termed coal transition credits that could compensate for revenue loss from retiring the coal plants. And then that could be eventually traded in carbon markets. And that was, sparked by an initial investment of TEA. I think it was around $1 million, $1.5 million from CIF and about 15 million in concessional loans. The result was that Chile's coal share dropped from 36% in 2018 to 22% in 2022. So not only are we getting the type of emissions reductions we want, we're also establishing an example for if and when carbon markets come online, how credits can work within that. So it's a really successful example of what we can do, especially when paired with the creativity of our colleagues in country and in the MDBs. So that's a good Latin America example. A TAF specific example, just very quickly, is one where a couple years ago we provided a grant about 850,000 to Turkey to help them establish pathways for low carbon industrial transition, industrial decarbonization. It was not a huge amount of money, but they were able to engage in an extensive stakeholder collaboration process and build and develop a study that really laid out a roadmap for how Chile could start to approach industry decarbonization, which is kind of a notoriously challenging place to be. It's one where CIF, we've just launched a program to help support countries that want to get on those low carbon pathways in industry. So we partnered with EBRD, and EBRD partnered with the Ministry of Industry and Technology in Turkey. They were able to take those studies and build out the Turkey Industrial Decarbonization Investment Platform, which was launched at COP in 2024, but it's been in work for over a year. So that platform will be targeting decarbonization in steel, aluminum, cement, and fertilizers, building out roadmaps that can integrate, the critical technologies, the different financing tools, and the policy measures that all need to be combined to get those high emitting industries on a lower carbon usage path. So that is something that you can see with the technical assistance facility, bringing some small amount of resources to bear that can then hopefully transform a country's entire sectors of a country's economy. And the platform is just getting off the ground, so there's still work to be seen as how we do, but we expect that Turkey will then turn around and submit a very strong application to receive industry decarbonization financing from CIF, right? So this, let me just end on this. It shows the different steps and the different financial tools that CIF can provide that countries partnered with the MDBs can take advantage of to really get themselves in a position to have transformational investments that can, lead to low carbon development pathways.
Thank you so much, Danny, and thank you for also highlighting another example of what IDB invested with the climate investment funds in Chile with ENGIE. It's a very impactful project, and we're also very proud, but it was nice to hear it coming from you. Malini, first of all, I have already identified some of the questions that are coming in, but before we open up for the questions that we have, could you share with us, Malini, what other examples you think are also impactful in the region? And also, what's the barrier for entry to do this type of work?
Sure, absolutely. So very much in line with what we've seen with Produbanco and with Sicredi, we've moved towards an approach where we're not only looking at having our use of proceeds go to climate finance, but we're looking at this corporate approach. How do we support the bank, in the case of Marcelo, to transition towards thinking with the climate mindset? So one additional example I would tell you about is Global Bank, which is actually our most recent example with this model of blending blended finance and technical assistance. And what we did with Global Bank was that not only did we look, it was a $100 million loan, not only did we look at that $100 million going towards climate finance, but we sat with them and we said, okay, what are the needs that you have and how can we have impact? Very much in line with some of what the panelists said earlier. So we sat with them, we said, okay, the market is moving towards TCFD, towards ISSB, which are reporting frameworks. And we created this blended finance product where we said, okay, we're going to put milestones. And at each point, when you reach these milestones, you get an interest rate deduction. So you're creating this financial incentive for the bank. And at the same time, we're not just leaving the bank there, right? We're providing technical assistance with Global Bank. We said we're going to do a gap analysis with you to see where you are in the TCFD process. Then, based on what comes out of that, we're going to do a climate change action plan for you. And we're going to support you in doing all of this reporting. And I would say maybe just the most innovative piece there was, for the first time, we looked at physical risk assessment. So we put a monetary financial number to what are some of the climate risks in the portfolio, so that now the bank is aware, and that then leads to broader change beyond our loan. It leads to that mindset of thinking beyond this loan in the future. How do we create that systems change? On your second question, maybe on a barrier to entry, not as much a barrier to entry, but a challenge. This is a product that we've created, but it requires customization. So something that works for one bank in one country may not work for another bank in another country. And even in the same country, there's the same regulation, but the capacity in each bank is different. The strategy in each bank is different. So something that we do at IDB Invest, we spend a lot of time sitting with, our blended finance teams, our advisory technical assistance teams, to sit together, see where the pain points are of the bank, what is their vision, which market are they operating with, and how can we have the most climate impact to create this very customized solution of blended finance, and then pair it with technical assistance. So we're hand-holding them through the process.
Thank you, Malini. So let me just quickly go to the questions. Some of them are being answered because they are for the climate investment funds, so they are being answered online. But there is here one question for you, John and Marcelo. Lindsay asks about, given the fact that not everybody is ready for the painful process, have you had specific personal or professional incentives within your institutions to move this agenda? Or for, you mentioned about the board of directors. You also, Marcelo, mentioned about your past CEO, a former CEO, but not everybody is comfortable with this scary, new, untested process. So did you have specific personal or professional incentives?
Well, Helen, in the case of Produbanco, in our case, our team got the opportunity to be the leader of the Net Zero Banking Alliance strategy, and in our case, it was not like a specific promotion for the team, but actually this project gave us a lot of visibility into in the institution and give us a lot of seniority. And at the time, it was not represented into a specific promotion or incentive. But with the time, with this seniority and with this responsibility, we got the opportunity to be part of other projects and got incentives because of the good work we were doing with. The other thing with this question is how to motivate other team members into this strategy. And my recommendation will be like, let them be part of the process and give them make them part of for example, the weekly meetings you have with some consultants. If you have some type of a strategy or a roadmap, give them some specific targets they need to be working on. And if you get the chance, also give them some type of metrics of targets they need to accomplish. And I think like if everybody is part and have some type of responsibility, you can move forward with this. And the other things, not related actually with incentives, but it's something related, for example, what Malini said recently. And the thing is that when you have this type of commitment with some FDI, for example, it's part of a financial investment or something like that, you have a contractual obligation. So this is actually a huge opportunity internally have to move things forward, because it's not like I want to do things, like it's we need to do things because we have a contractual obligation. So everybody needs to go moving forward and be part of this process.
Thank you, Marcelo. João, I see you nodding, so probably you agree with what Marcelo said, but is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, Marcelo basically just said everything that came to my mind. What I would add, it's regarding the part that he said to make everybody in the project feel part of this initiative, is that as I said, our directors were fully committed to this strategy. So at the end of the first operation that we did with IDB Invest, we asked our CFO and CEO to schedule a meeting and to thank everyone involved. So they received the thanks directly from the CEO, and he explained why it was important. So this is why I highlighted that it is important to have the directors committed, because it gives a different sense of motivation to the employees.
Thank you so much. And we're almost running out of time. I see some questions about Peru, an example of a microfinance project in Peru that we are going to look at it. There was not a specific question. The question had to do with the public sector. And I say that IDB, public sector side, does work with development finance institutions at the government level, at the country level, where they can do exactly the same similar things that we're presenting here. So with that, there were other questions that had to do with how African countries can access this type of projects or do these types of projects, and the African Development Bank would be able to support in that case. I think we have, I mean, I could spend more time in this. This is very interesting work. We're moving slowly the needle on impact and climate action. But I pass on the word to Cisa to do the final reflections and conclude the event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you to all the speakers for the particularly rich discussion. We have seen how the collaboration across entities can leverage each other's key expertise and is basically scaling sustainable solutions to go for climate ambitions. And we have seen how blended finance can act as this unifying platform, bringing together governments, multilateral development banks, financial institutions, and the private sector to tackle the climate challenge holistically, creating and enabling an environment for broader impact. So blended finance and technical assistance are shown to be powerful tools to address both perceived and real risks, and so that they can build institutional capacity and integrate climate considerations into every aspect of the financial operations. So the financial institutions are not only participants, but key enablers in the transition to a low carbon future. And their proactive transformation will determine the pace of climate action. With that, I will pass it back to you, Helen, to provide final closing remarks.
So if I can take something from this conversation, is ready to be uncomfortable, and it pays to be ready, to get ready to be able to mobilize more resources later on. I think those were the two takeaways from John and Marcelo that I hope that incentivize all of you to do this type of projects in your own institutions. And please download the report and you get more information there. I think Danielle's presentation was very much an overview, but there's a lot more of information in the report. So thank you so much for joining us today.